Greetings, friends. Good to have you back. We're now going to continue on with the second paper, which is number 70, titled The Ascent of Moses. Moses was to take Israel out of Egypt and take them before their God to receive the law through the hands of the being that spoke to them from Sinai. Moses was to ascend the Mount of God 6 times to speak with the Elohim, who later became Jesus Christ. The journey has great significance for the calendar and the spiritual journey for all of the faithful. And we'll quickly go through the synopsis introduction here. The story of the salvation of mankind begins in microcosm with the exodus of Israel from Egypt. Moses was made an Elohim, or God, to Egypt and Pharaoh. He spoke to God. Aaron was made a prophet for him, and they were sent to take Israel out of Egypt. The exodus really starts with the new moon of Abib, where the battles of Moses and Pharaoh come to head. And we'll now hand over to Wade to fill us in on the rest of the amazing story.
So we get to Sinai and we'll deal with the structure and development of Pentecost at Sinai, but many people think that Moses went up the mountain, received the law, spent 40 days on the mountain and came back again. That's the general presentation, but the reality is much different. There were 6 ascents of Moses. Now, the first 3 were in the first 6 days, or the few days of Sivan, and they developed, and then there was a major demarcation, and the 4th ascent then went up the mountain for the 40-day period, and there was a structural problem with the 40-day period, and we'll deal with that in the golden calf sequence. But the 6 ascents were involved and punctuated by the giving of the law and then the erection of the tabernacle of God. So that's important in studying the sequence of what happened and the presentation. God drew Moses up to give him the law as a sequence. He gave him the 10 Commandments on 2 tablets of stone, and then in those ascents, the people sinned. They went back to the worship of sin. Now, sin is the name of the moon god. That was the moon god. Sin was represented by a bull, and the bull slaying myths emerged from that. The horns of the calf were taken from the representation of what was called in ancient days the finger of Asherah, which was the sighting of the crescent. Now, the sighting of the crescent has got nothing to do with the determination of the new moon. The new moon is the complete dark moon with no crescent. And anyone who seeks to sight the crescent, the silver crescent of the new moon, is a pagan heretic. They have nothing to do with Christianity or ancient Judaism, ancient Israeli religion. It has nothing to do with the temple calendar. The temple calendar is based on the conjunction of the new moon and the moon. The month system goes from conjunction to conjunction. The moon god was male in its structure, and today the moon god Sin is basically named, the moon is called Qamar, which in the Arabic, which is a male deity, a male form. The sun is named Shams, which is the female form. And that stems from the ancient Assyro-Babylonian worship of the moon god. The calendar in Islam is determined from the sighting of the crescent. It has nothing to do with Islam, with the faith of the Quran and the faith of the biblical system and the temple calendar of God. It has nothing whatsoever to do with us. And dealing with it is wrong. It's a sin, taken from the name of the worship of the moon god Sin, which was at Sinai. Now, Moses went and continued on. He did the 40 days, came down and smashed the tablets because they were in revelry, using the licentious sexual rites of the moon god Sin in their operations. Moses then took a sword and he mobilized the Levites and killed the 3,000 Levites who were involved with this heresy. And the punishment for ministers who engage in heretical doctrines and practices is death. We'll see that develop now through until the coming of the Messiah. It's important that we note that these ascents of Moses were to deal with the presentation of the law and the sequence of activities required of Israel in its establishment in the Promised Land and its future establishment in its inheritance. And we are required to be keeping the proper biblical structure that Christ, who was the being giving the law to Moses on the mountain, it was Christ that gave that law, Acts 7:30 to 53. And that being was killed, and that being was Christ. Now, when he comes back, he's going to reinstate the law and the new moons and all the Sabbaths and the feasts, and if you don't keep them, you will not be allowed to live. It's that simple. The ascent of Moses is important in understanding what happens. He had to go back, get a new set of laws, bring them back, and then reorganize the people and prepare for the development up to basically through the month of Elul, so that they were ready to undertake the Feast of Trumpets, or Day of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. And these 6 ascents of Moses took place over the 3 months from Sivan to Elul. And it's important to know that Moses was up that mountain and down that mountain for 3 months, preparing for the month of the 7th month of the calendar. And it's important that we understand all those aspects, and this paper will explain to you what was involved.
And
Wait, do you see any significance in the trek that he had to make? I mean, climbing up that mountain and coming down that many times, that wouldn't have been easy, would it?
At his age, too.
No.
That's right.
He was 80 years of age, and I walk around now with a stick whenever I'm doing any distance, but Moses was fitter than I am and had less pollutions and no injuries. So that's all of that's important. But yes, he did go up 6 times. He was fit. He went up 3 times in a matter of days in the first instance. The first three ascents were over a matter of 6 days. So all of the references, all of the sequence is listed with the biblical structure so that you can put it all together and understand what was behind what he was doing.
Yeah, and look, and just be aware, CCG has done great research into these papers. They're based on biblical truths, historical truths that can be proven. It's there for your use. We're not forcing you. We'd never try and recruit you or anything like that, but it is there. It's God you should be seeking. It's the one true church you should be seeking. And you know what to go looking for. The information here is self-explanatory and you can prove it to yourself.
It's explicitly accurate and biblically sound. And you go for it and scrutinise it, and you'll find that there's no leeway. And as we know, Matthew 16:18, there is only one true church. And at the end, the Philadelphian church has a door which is open and no man can shut. And it's up to you to prove it through the accuracies of these papers. And we've had 30 years of experience, and they're all interrelated and linked each paper with hyperlinks to other papers, which if you're being drawn by the Father Eloha, you'll be so excited you won't be able to put them down.
Exactly. All right.